Welcome to Land Academy. I'm Jack Butala.
I'm Jill Dewit.
We show you how to buy real estate for half of what it's worth.
And sell it on the internet really fast.
We are Jack and Jill,
and this is the Jack and Jill Show too.
With over 15,000 completed transactions, we're the experts at acquiring property.
Of all kinds, not just land.
For half price and flipping them for way more.
All right, let's get this show started.
Jack Butala with Jill DeWitt.
Hello.
Welcome to the show today. In this episode, Jill and I talk about long-term planning and why it's so important. Or maybe it's not for you. We don't know yet. Before we get into it, let's take a question posted by one of our members on the landinvestors.com online community. It's free.
I'm trying to imagine going through life without any kind of planning when you said maybe it's not for you. Could you imagine if you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this now. Yeah, I'm going to do that now. I mean, how...
Sounds nice.
What?
It sounds kind of nice.
What if you wake up and go, yeah, I don't want to be married anymore, or I don't like these kids anymore, because there's no planning involved.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, Jack.
You asked the question.
I did. I didn't think...
I'm watching this show on Netflix called Life Below Zero, and it's about these people that chucked it all and went up to Alaska, and they're literally living off the land like there's no money involved in their life at all. They just go fishing, they shoot elk and stuff. And, you know...
Jack, there's long-term planning there. I watched the show with you.
I know, but
they have to plan in October because they're not going to make it to April with food and firewood if they don't long-term plan.
I know. I wasn't saying that's not planning.
Like
it's just for a few minutes I have a little fantasy about, living off the land.
Oh.
That's all.
You want living off the land with an assistant. That's your way of making it work. No, I know.
Living off the land with an army.
Yeah, that's what you want. You just want to walk in and have everything done. I know you. That's really what you want.
You know what? I can't even talk my way out of that.
Uh-huh.
Jill, you're absolutely right.
This is going to be... we all know the reason that we did this show is because Jack's long-term planning is very near and dear to Jack's heart.
It's true, actually.
So this is why we're talking about this. Totally. All right, so back to the question. So Stephen asks, I was just contacted by a seller with an offer sent in June asking if I would still honor it. I said that I would, and I would start my due diligence. Should I ask him to send me the original signed purchase agreement, or should I send a new one?
This is
good.
We're preparing ourselves for Jill's rant on purchase agreements and how they're not necessary.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Or should I send a new one with a new deadline closing date? After reading the recent post about not using a notary and sending a deed with instructions and a new purchase agreement with a deadline to head off procrastination, and then sending a regular check as a stated normal closing procedure, and was thinking of trying that. What would you do in this situation? Okay. May I, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, before you do, the callers, obviously, there's a bunch of stuff that was answered on landinvestors.com on that forum there. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, so I think they took bits and pieces of different people tweaking their procedures, thinking it would make it better. And my point is, stop reinventing the wheel. So, I mean, I just think you're going to get too confusing here. Are you just trying to close a deal? Then yeah. Do we need to do all this extra steps and paperwork and do this and try to trick people with, what was the word here, to head off procrastination? No. And sending them a regular check saying, no, that's my closing procedure. Wait till it clears or something. I don't know. I don't like any of this.
I don't either. Here's why.
I'm a be upfront and honest kind of person. And this to me smells of not being upfront and honest.
If you're not a licensed real estate agent, and this goes for the whole country, there's no deal police. There's not somebody at the county or some public official. You know, it's one of the things that just this generation, it's unfortunate, and it's not this generation's fault. They just think there's somebody always looking over their shoulder and that some teacher's going to yell at them or somebody's going to say, no, you're doing it wrong. And
you really think that?
I believe
you think more people believe that, walk around like that?
Well, I think it's not their fault. I think it happens.
Do you think our kids
do that? I think
after
these kids this generation was post 9/11. Or they're too young to remember it. So I just think that there's a lot more regulation. But I'm here to tell you, here's the good news. When you buy and sell these properties this way, there's a lot of room for error. And even if the worst stuff happens, you can go back and alter it at the end, after it's done and correct it with paperwork. So There's no right and way,
That's why
right
Jack
or wrong
wants
way.
us lots of room for error.
No
You can
right
still
or wrong
fix
way
it.
to do this. Jill doesn't do a purchase agreement ever.
No, if they
Almost
send it
ever.
back, you know what happens if they sign it and send it back or whatever, they make a point to get it back to me. I just like whatever. It's like thanks. Let's kind of put it aside. It's not necessary in this at all. Does it need to be recorded with anything? No. Do you need to keep it for your records for anything? No. So seriously, it's a formality. It's a way for me to get my offer to them. That's
Right.
really what it is. My purchase agreement is my version of a formal offer to them to accept or decline.
And it's real good
That's
for their
it.
head, too. That's what the value in a purchase agreement, the way we do this with houses and everything is, you know what? The seller signs their name and says, I made a commitment.
Right. You made a commitment and I'm making a commitment.
When you get
That's
right
what
down
it
to
is,
it,
but
is
it's
it a
really
legal?
just in your heads.
Is it really a legal binding
Thing?
contract? I would probably have to. I'm not a lawyer at all, but I think if you there's pros and there's fors and against on that argument. But in the end, is it really a binding agreement? I don't think so.
We had someone ask the other day too, like because they were just called in and were asking about offers to owners and our thing. They're like, do you have to buy them? And I was coaching our team. No, tell them to read the thing because there's 6 things on there saying that if this doesn't meet my criteria or X isn't correct, I have to verify square footage, whatever it is. There's lots of things on there that you can say, you know what, this didn't. Thank you very much, but this actually, I don't want to purchase this asset, and you don't have to, and it's legal.
What the PA says is, I'm going to offer you $25,000 for your property. If that's okay, sign below. However,
I'm prepared to.
After you sign it, we're going to take a look at the property real close. We're going to perform due diligence, and if there's anything we don't like about this property at all,
we're not going to follow
we're not
through.
going to buy it.
And that's it.
It's a contingency.
It's the same as anything. Like you buy a house, you buy a boat. You wait for the inspection, and when the inspection comes back or the survey comes back, then you can still decide yay or nay. It's
I
like
love
the
boats.
same thing.
Let's talk about boats more.
I had to put that in there. Boats.
You know why
it's a
Jill put it in
survey.
there?
What?
Because Jill just killed a deal.
I
on
did.
a very large boat based on the survey.
I did.
For us, like a personal boat.
Exactly. So, and then
I frankly think she didn't like the people involved in the deal, and she killed it.
no, the people were okay. I didn't like on the end of the day, I wasn't in love with the boat.
Okay.
No, and then the boat I really am in love with, I don't want to do right now. Well, that's a whole nother story.
It's a different show.
It's a
Not even an
whole
episode.
different show. If you have a question or you want to be on the show, reach out to either one of us on landinvestors.com. Today's topic, long-term planning. Like how I do that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love when you take control
I
of this.
did take control. Jack, this is the meat of the show. Go.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Jill.
You're welcome.
God, we sound all professional.
Somebody asked me, I gotta tell you right now, this is, okay, not to interrupt you, but the TV show.
But I do it to you.
Thank you. Yeah. I was talking to our potential director, editor, everything, a lot of hats for this TV show we're working on. And she's like, I had to go listen to some of your stuff. I'm like, yeah, you kind of should. So she said, we were talking about, well, how much production? She says, probably the same as what you put into your podcast. And I said,
I'm sure
no.
I'm sure that's not the case.
I said, oh, no,
So-
Marcy, that's not at all what goes on.
So you mean zero.
Exactly. I said, Marcy, that's so unrehearsed. I said, but now we have it down. So I just thought that was funny. Thank you, Jack.
So long-term planning, I think there's 3 phases to anything you do in life, right? You get this light bulb over your head or whatever. You're on the internet and something strikes a chord. So you test the waters. That's step 1. You say, maybe I would like to send a bunch of offers out. Maybe I would like to ask a girl out in theory. Things like that. Then step 2 is, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm actually going to, I tested the water. The girl doesn't seem too crazy. Sending out offers. There's all these
She
other
doesn't
people.
think I smell.
There's all these other people on this silly site called landinvestors.com or this silly television station called HGTV that seem to be successful at how they do that. Everybody's got a kind of different twist on it, but it seems like it's relatively viable. You know what? Real estate, there's a bunch of people that do actually pretty well in real estate. So I test the water. I send some stuff out. I look into it, and it passes my test. So now number 2, make a commitment. And so during this commitment phase, this is where I see a lot of people falter. Step one, there's a lot of people who sit around and say, everybody I know who's serious about real estate owns a really large yacht. That's easy to say and then sit around and dream about it. Step two is making that commitment and then sort of following through and to get a few deals done and get them done, either fail at it a few times and then figure out what the issue was and succeed at it. And then step three is long-term planning to kind of institutionalize it, is what I call it in our office. But here's the thing that Jill and I were talking about before the show. Long-term planning for me is always in the back of my head, Jill, and I think it is with you too.
I wrote that's one of the things. I wrote down 3 things, and one I said is always on my mind. You have to always be thinking like that.
Like, what's a real exit strategy? You know, so Jill and I now, since we started Land Academy, we responded to our members and some people who are not members and who said they want tools, you know, like, so we developed a tool called Offers to Owners and one called Parcel Fact. And this is not a big, long commercial. So those are tools to help people get real estate deals closed faster and easier and cheaper. Mm-hmm. And those all have, you know, those were a tremendous amount of 3-step process, long-term planning involved in that too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like, hey, Miss-Inspiration, how do you use long-term planning?
Is that a save me?
No.
Oh.
I mean.
Oh, I was listening. I'm over here content listening, and I'm thinking about my stuff. So for me, when you say long-term planning, what's important? You know, and I do. So there's business and there's personal. So I think you've been talking about mostly business right now, Jack. And so I do think about that. Like, is this a company I want to keep for the rest of my life? Is this a company I want to sell someday? I mean, then I'm going to set them up differently.
Right. That's a perfect example. Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
So let's say you start a company that only you're only going to buy and sell 4 assets because you have a partner. So your partner puts all the money up, you go and find the assets and you flip them. You know exactly, without really even saying it out loud, and maybe not without thinking it, what your exit is on that company. Those you're going to buy those 4 assets, or your partner is. You're going to sell them. There's going to be a bunch of money left over. You're going to split the money up however you agree to it. Long-term planning. The next one, because it went well, might even go better. I mean, you might even say, let's do 8 assets this time at this little company, or maybe 80. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'll buy a large piece of property in Texas and subdivide it all up, cut it all up, and piece it out on terms. So the long-term planning and how you're going to get out of what you're getting yourself into today in the future should always be on your mind, sort of. Mm-hmm. Some people would argue that you should handle personal relationships the same way. Like, how am I going to get out of this at the end?
No, long-term planning is when are we going to retire? What are we going to do?
Oh, right, yeah.
What trips are we going to take? That's long-term planning, not how to get rid of her.
What's my exit strategy in this marriage?
Exactly. No.
You know, I'm never talking about you.
Not like, I'm going to put some money over here that she doesn't know about. No.
You know, if you listen to the show at all, you've probably picked up on the fact that there were potentially people in our lives before each other.
Potentially. What are you trying to say there, Jack? You're dancing around the...
No, when I say, you know, have an exit strategy in marriage, I mean, not you, Jill.
Thank you.
You know that.
We all have, well, not all of us, but most of us have, you know, you reach a certain age and you've had more than one relationship. How's that?
Right.
That's what it is. So, you're so silly. Boy, how do we get down this path? I'm
Long-term planning.
Sheesh. Trying to bring it back in here, and that's like scary.
There's a few things, since we're talking about this, I don't think you can plan for it all, and you really have to just calm down about it. And I'm really talking to myself now versus anybody else. Raising children, you just don't know what you're going to get. So you can manage it. And you know, sometimes you have to put a tremendous amount of time in, and sometimes it just raises itself. Some version of that.
That's true.
It's talking to me again. No, I'm just joking.
No, that's true. I like that. Well, even having a family, you need to long-term plan that.
Real estate, fortunately, and real estate deals and partners and stuff, business partners, man, it couldn't be easier.
Yeah, it's easy.
You know,
when you talk about family and personal stuff, it makes, you know, it's funny, this whole conversation, because there's business long-term planning and there's personal and family long-term planning. when the more you talk about it, the easier the business long-term planning
Yeah,
gets.
absolutely.
And what's funny is I think most people think that's the hardest one. Like, I can figure out my life. I just don't know my career. I just don't know this. I don't know that. But man, no, that's the easy part. It's the personal part that I think's the hardest. Because like you said, there's things you can't account for because there's other people involved. You know, business exists on paper, and that makes me happy. Do you know what I mean? A paper's not going to argue with me, but boy, personal will.
Since we're talking about this, I think when you start to, so in a business situation, there's contingencies and there's a scenario. There's an if-then statement for just about every situation. So if this deal goes sideways, but this one's great, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. If your partner ends up being the biggest ding-dong there ever was, then this happens.
Then that's the last transaction we do together.
Almost impossible to do that in a social relationship without some pretty serious repercussions.
Yeah.
So that's why I couldn't agree with you more.
Turns out to be a pain in the ass.
Or a serial killer.
Then
Can't say ass on the show, Joe.
No.
It's rated G.
Oh, did it? Sorry. Well,
you can say anything you want on the Thursday call.
Okay, got it. Sorry. Like, what the heck? So, all right. But yes, you're so funny.
We have a rated G, like a 5-star rated G rating on iTunes. And we just can't.
You know what's so funny? I'm the most rated G person normally. I hate to say it. I've learned a few words from you. All right.
That's for a different show.
Okay.
Join us in the next episode where we discuss flipping pitfalls.
And we answer Peter's question about Florida lots and scrub jay fees.
Yeah, I know all about that.
This will be very interesting.
You are not alone in your real estate ambition. Good show, Joe.
That was good. It's important. We've had a lot of big picture topics. We came off the whole millionaire series, and now
Which
you've
did
got
really
some
well,
other
by the way.
big things.
We haven't talked about that, but boy, I'll tell you, that did well.
That word sings to people. You know, it's funny. Remember when $1 million was a lot of money?
I know.
Now it's like $1 billion is more money, but. So
There's
you know what?
There's a big difference between $1 million and $1 billion.
Well, you know what's interesting
It's almost
too?
unfair.
It's not hard nowadays. I mean, $1 million seemed like a lot of money, and now it's not hard for a lot more people to be millionaires, and I like that. You could be.
$1 million is $100,000 times 10. So if you make $100,000 a year, it's only 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
$1 billion or $1 million?
$1 million.
You're right.
$1 billion is 1,000 million. So 1,000 years.
That's a lot.
I mean, 1,000 times 100. So you can't, my point is, it's not fair to say million and then billion. I think you can say million and then 100 million or 30 million or 20 million, and then now you're talking.
Got it.
I'm not criticizing you. I just hear people say.
I went right to Bill Gates.
It's just, it's because the people on the top of the list now are multi-billionaires, and now all of a sudden billions been a target, and it's so unrealistic for even us. There's almost zero chance. No, there's a zero. I want to say zero chance. I don't want that.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
But stocking away a couple $100 million is.
I'm good with that. That's really good. Hey, like our show? Please subscribe and rate us on iTunes or wherever you're listening. And yes, I did.
Information and inspiration to buy undervalued marriage.
We are Jack and Jill, and
this was the Cash Flow from Land Show. We are the experts at acquiring property
of all kinds, not just land.
For half price, just so we can flip it for way more.
And really fast. Thanks for listening. You are not alone in your real estate ambition.